Thanks for listening to the Drummers Weekly Groovecast. You can contact the show at twitter.com/DW Groovecast and through Facebook at facebook.com/Drummers Weekly Groovecast.
Good evening.
I am warning you right now, if you touch my drums, I will stab you in the neck with a knife.
Ain't a funky. Ain't a funky.
Mom!
Take it easy. Lower it.
I'm not gonna lower it. I have to do this now.
I don't mind you playing it, but lower it.
Well,
Everything is straightened out?
No, we had a problem. I mean, we tried to do everything we could.
What do you mean?
Well, you know what I mean.
Next.
Little trouble there. You're rushing.
Yeah, well, you know, that's just like your opinion, man.
You know, man, I've been sitting here thinking we've been doing this show for almost a year and a half, and I'm thinking, you know, maybe it's time to change up a couple things, maybe put some sort of a new intro music together, which I'm kind of working on right now. But man, it always is a stumbling block when I get to the end of it, because we always let Philly, who never disappoints, do that last four. What am I going to do to freaking top that? I just don't know.
You know what blows my mind, man? He's so consistent when he does that.
I think
it's the same bill every time.
Well, that and his time is impeccable. I think they might be using a click.
They gotta be, and I think he wrote out that, because every time we have him play it,
it's the same
you know,
thing.
it's this. Yeah, but I think a click. That's a good observation too.
Well, that and he could be using directly some kind of a quote out of that Wilcoxon Swing Solos book. I understand that's the only thing he really worked out of.
Yeah. Well, I think that if you were to do a new intro, that Billy Joe would be okay. I mean, we've given him plenty of exposure, and now people are kind of a little bit aware of him. So I think he'll be grateful, and we'll just champion another up and coming.
Yeah, he's no longer unknown, and we've done enough.
Exactly.
To our hundreds of listeners.
So you undiscovered mega talents out there, we might find you and make you a household name like we have Billy Joe.
That's what I'm saying. I want everyone to think about all of these little known fellas that we've brought to light, like these gentlemen like Sonny Emery, Joel Rosenblatt, Adam Deitch, Tom Breckline. You're welcome. Now you guys know who these fellows are.
I feel like Mother Teresa or something, man. The good deeds are just beyond reproach.
Well, I think today you're feeling like Big Daddy Warbucks bringing in gear.
Right. Yeah, I started my day off right, for sure.
Yeah, you did. Tell these fine folks what you marched into the DWG studios with.
I found a 50s 6.5 by 14-inch Radio King Black Diamond Pearl for $150.
You're about to turn that $150 into 3 big head Benjamins.
That would be fine. God knows I need it. My Benjamins are going straight down Walt Disney's toilet as we speak.
I understand you had a good time while you were down there.
It was awesome. Sorry I missed a couple of these fine interviews you've been bringing the good people, but we did the family vacation, and then I've been on the road a little bit, which is nice.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, these interviews, they fell in our lap.
Yeah.
You know, they were the kind of things where it's like, I love it whenever you talk to somebody and you go, hey, you want to sit down and talk for a little while? And they go, how about Tuesday? I mean, like 3 days later, and you're like, okay. You don't mind if I do.
Yeah, you got to take it when it comes, for sure.
Yeah.
Great job. And
danke. Thank you.
I think that, I don't know, man, we've had this run of great luck and timing.
Yeah.
But more importantly, man, just how it still points to the fact that our fraternity is awesome. Our, peer interaction and all that is second to none when it comes to instruments. And I mean, I look back at all of these interviews we've done, and like, everybody is great, forthcoming, honest, and
effortless too, man.
Yeah. It's been we always have that though. When we sit down as drummers and talk, it is just kind of it's effortless like that. So why wouldn't these interviews be the same? Because we're all that have the same passions and interests, and it's just been it's been enjoyable and certainly fulfilling for me to be a part of all that. Thanks to everyone who's participated.
Yeah, we got some more coming down the pipeline here pretty soon. That it's funny also, this show was never intended to be an interview show. We never said that we were not going to do them, but we've had this really cool run of luck of people who were willing to do this, and again, they just kind of organically happen, which is really nice. So yeah, we've got a few more real good ones coming down the pipe here soon. So of course, stay in touch, and as always, you can make sure to email us or contact us if you've got suggestions as well. We love it when people suggest different people that we can talk to, or better yet, if you even know somebody and then suggest it. Having a little bit of a personal connection to some of these people certainly doesn't hurt either. So we do appreciate any suggestions that you have. John, we've got to do a little bit of business before we get into the show. And we've done this business several times. And boy, we've got a little bit of bad news. I mean, well, it's not necessarily news, because I think almost everybody who's in touch with social media these days probably knows this news. But boy, we've had a trifecta of some passings here this past few days. And we got to give some love. And the first one that I want to bring up happened just a couple of days ago. We lost another drumming great, brother. And I mean, we lost a massive figure, a legend. We lost Grady Tate, wonderful drummer, and a lot of people may not realize it, an incredible singer as well.
No doubt. I loved his voice.
Oh, wasn't it amazing?
Just so much soul and depth in it.
Yeah.
He phrased so great, which makes perfect sense.
Doesn't it?
Yeah. I remember my first exposure to Grady was, it was on a Jimmy Smith record.
Yeah.
And it was grooving so hard. I was like, because I had been into Blakey, and Grady, when he played, he could just do that. He could lay it out, man, and just be greasy and groovy. And I kind of caught wind of him that way. And then in turn, we moved on to some other stuff legendary records he played on.
Well, I think a lot of people who know him from those soul jazz we call them soul jazz recordings, where he did some of that stuff with Jimmy Smith, may not be aware of some of the other things that he did. Now, the one thing I want to bring to everybody's attention, that if you don't know him at all, there is an absolute legendary recording that I think should pretty much be ground zero for everybody to start with. There's a recording that he did with Stan Getz back in the late 60s called Sweet Rain. Yeah, man.
Nice.
And it's got this slacker of a rhythm section with Chick Corea and Ron Carter.
Never heard of them.
Yeah, never heard of those guys, right? That entire record is brilliant, but there are a couple of cuts that I want to bring to everyone's attention as far as that are just legendary Grady Tate. One is the track Letha, that's by Chick Corea, a tune that he wrote. Incredible up-tempo swing on that just sounds effortless. Listen to the comping that he does on that
just
track.
Floats.
Yeah. Just
so good.
Fantastic. And then another one that I really, really like is Con Alma. It's that Afro-Cuban 6/8 tune by Dizzy.
Yep.
Boy, he sounds just like a Afro-Cuban 6/8 master on that track. And then there's another Chick Corea tune on there called Windows. It's a little jazz waltz in 3. just brilliant. Grady Tate is fantastic on that entire album, but those cuts are the ones that I really like. And then the other thing that I don't know if a lot of people are aware of, he was the longtime recording drummer and collaborator for the film composer Angelo Badalamenti. And if that doesn't ring a bell with you, it will if you've been familiar with any of the David Lynch soundtracks, and in particular, the soundtrack to Twin Peaks. There are a series of little bits of Joyner music and bits of music, like intro, outro music, where he plays brushes. And he just sounds tremendous, man. It's kind of that film noir, detective kind of Joyner music where he's playing brushes. That's Grady Tate on there.
That's amazing.
Isn't that great? Yeah.
Some good stuff. And I tell you, yeah, the Lynch stuff, man, he really, really uses music well and creates the perfect vibe a lot of times with his crew, and Grady being part of it makes sense.
Yeah.
He's one of those guys, man, I think about like touch. He has that magic touch that, you know, he's not terribly heavy-handed. It's just so musical, and you can just tell he's one of those guys that could sit down on any kit and make it work. He's just one of those magic drummers like that. Love that guy.
I mean, just that's one of those proverbial intangibles that we talk about, that, you know, we can call it touch, but it's really hard to actually pinpoint exactly kind of what that means. You just kind of feel it.
Yeah, he has
it. Boy, he has it. He had it in spades, man. I'll tell you. Yeah.
Incredible.
And then, John, I wanted to mention also we lost kind of by drumming family, we lost another person that I don't know that he was a musician, but it's worth mentioning that in some ways this last name is almost kind of synonymous with the Kennedys of the drumming family by standpoint of royalty, but yet with tragedy also. We lost Miles Porcaro last week. And for those of you, I mean, I know you know the last name Porcaro, but that was Jeff Porcaro's son, who was like 30 years old. That we lost him last week, and that was completely and totally unexpected. So I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention, that poor family has really had its share of heartbreak.
Yeah, I can't throw out enough thoughts and prayers to them. It's been ridiculously regular occurrence in this family, and I know I speak for you when I say, you know, we have a heavy heart and lift them up in prayer.
Yeah.
That's a tough one, man.
And then to finish off our trifecta of tragedy, of course, we lost Tom Petty. Not a drummer, but man, one of the all-time music greats in the lexicon of all things music.
I know I was coming home from a session, and it was the Monday or that morning we heard about the Las Vegas insanity, and needless to say, I just really twisted about that. And then on the way home from that session, that word started coming out about Tom, and I thought like I thought a couple things hit me, like the band, you know, like he liked to work. And they worked, and you know, and all that. They're all going to be affected by that. But I also thought, like, well, damn, now I got to find a new dream gig, because that was my dream gig. Well,
and just what are the weird set of coincidences also that you told me? We talked that day, either the day that it happened or the day after, and you were like, "Man, I drove through Gainesville the day before."
I did. I posted that I was.
Yeah.
I listened to. On the way home from Orlando, it takes about 8 hours all said and done when you stop and eat and all that. And I think I listened to 3 Petty records, and going through Gainesville, I was listening to Wildflowers. And I put listening to Petty in Pettyville, and that was Sunday night.
Yeah.
You know, and then the next day, and it was, I just remember, was deep into that Wildflowers record. There's some songs on there you kind of forget about that are really brilliant. A couple real bluesy things that not only are classic tongue-in-cheek Petty, because he could do that. You know, he wouldn't always. He wasn't just locked into like being deep or profound all the time. Sometimes he could just put it out there as a funny euphemism or something like that. But man, that band, but that record in particular, there's some real magic moments, and I was just taken with all that. And then, of course, 24 hours later, the reality was.
Also, just a ancillary cool moment. If everybody, the next time you're in YouTube, do a quick search for Florida Gators, Tom Petty, I Won't Back Down.
Yeah, that's classic, man.
Just a really cool moment happened last Saturday at a Florida Gators football game. They did just a short tribute to him, like in between commercial breaks or whatever, where they played I Won't Back Down, and the entire stadium sang.
It was awesome.
Yeah. So if you haven't seen that, just do a quick YouTube search for that, like Florida Gators, Tom Petty, Won't Back Down, and you'll get a really cool, just one of those moments that you can't create. It just has to happen.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm sure most of you have seen it, but I watched most of the documentary in the last couple of days, Running Down a Dream, and that.
Yeah.
If you haven't, revisit that because it's that good.
And let me tell you, say what you will about Stan Lynch, because everybody seems like they have an opinion on him, mainly personality-wise, but he has one of the great quotes in documentary history that has to do with them recording one of the first albums with, is it Jimmy Iovine, and he said, it says something along the line of like, you've got punk ass drums and punk ass cymbals. We got to go out and buy you some like really good stuff.
But he agreed with it.
Yeah.
Which is cool because he didn't agree with a lot when it came to Jimmy.
Yeah. But though, here's the thing. And this kind of goes back to our zen of accommodation. Those records, the drum sounds that Jimmy Iovine captured on there, are still rock drum sounds we're trying to capture
Absolutely.
To this day.
I mean, all of Nashville is going for that.
So, I mean, you can't argue with what drums, Iovine, and cymbals he wanted to use on that and the way they captured them.
Yeah, he we're going to touch on this a little later, interestingly enough, but, talking about walls of guitars, man, we've touched on it before. You have to be incredibly mindful of everything from gear choice to microphone selection and all that. And I think that engineer he had, and he brought him out there specifically to do that record, there was that guy may have been a little more instrumental in the decisions, but they captured a classic for sure. And another interesting thing I noticed about that documentary, it was the first Petty solo record, and the band ended up backing him up on that tour, and they did the Dylan thing too. But there's some clips of them playing like Free Fallin' or Won't Back Down, where you can see Stan and Howie back there, just kind of long faced and indifferent, And it's a fascinating look into some ego and dynamics and band politics and exclusions.
That's what I was going to say. If you could put like the little bubble over their head right now.
Full moon fever. Golly, man.
Yeah.
It's been a long week.
The little bubble over their head would be like, I see the handwriting on the wall.
Oh, man.
See where that's going.
Yeah.
All right, John, let's get into our topic for the day. And here we go down the gear rabbit hole again, much to the love of our listeners. They like to hear us talk about this stuff. Or what?
Sometimes our opinions rub them the wrong way.
Oh, we'll definitely get some opinions.
They're
on
just
this.
that. They're just opinions.
Yeah. And we do get back to you. I don't think there hasn't ever been anybody that we didn't get back to regarding what we have to say or regarding what they have to say. We always address it. So, yeah, feel free to email
I went to that
us.
one guy's house. We're gonna talk. You want to talk about it, Champ?
I do remember that. Yeah. But, what we thought we'd do today, we're working our way around the drum set. John, what have we done so far? We've done the snare drum show. We've done the ride cymbal show. Yep. And we've done what's in your stick bag show, right? So we're working our way around to the hi-hats. And so what John and I thought we would do on this episode is talk about a few of our favorite hats. And we thought we'd throw in there for good measure some of our favorite hi-hat stands either because, boy, those two things, I mean, you can have a great set of hi-hats, but if you got a stand you don't like, it ruins the whole process and vice versa for that much.
Agreed.
So if you get a happy marriage between these two, you're going to be good. So let's go ahead and start. Do you want to go first or you want me to go first?
No, go ahead.
All right, first one I want to talk about, and I'm going to kind of group mine in like we'll call them for lighter sounding things and then for heavier sounding things.
Okay.
And the first one that I'm going to start out with is the one that I use or the ones that I use primarily for my jazz stuff or my lighter stuff. And what I have, John, is I have an old set of late 70s 14-inch Zildjian New Beat hi-hats. Those are rare, very rare, aren't they?
I'm turning green with envy as we speak. I've only owned 293 pairs of them, so you are cruel to bring this up.
Probably the only thing that's even moderately rare about them is that they're hollow logo Zildjian New Beats, which there's still a million of those out there. But wouldn't you have to say, John, that overall 14-inch New Beat hi-hats are probably the most common hi-hats on the face of the planet?
To me, they're like the Remo-coated ambassador of hi-hats. It's kind of the litmus test. The let's start here, and that this is a really great, like, no frills, professional.
Yeah.
Hi-hat.
And also, I think, to your point, they are probably also home base for our ears when it comes to that.
That's exactly what I agree.
It's the kind of thing that you hear these on, half of every recording ever made, so your ears kind of get used to hearing them as well. They're also the proverbial 5-inch Ludwig Superphonic snare drum.
Yep, exactly.
Is what they are. They're just on so many recordings, they just sound right to your ears. But now, here's an interesting way that I came upon these from the standpoint of like, hey, I know these are the ones that I want to use for this. I'm a huge fan of Kenny Washington's playing when it comes to like super straight ahead post bop style drumming. Mm-hmm. And I've mentioned it on the show before. I was the curator of some of Kenny's cymbals for a while. I had a hold of them, and his hi-hats that he still uses, I think, or used on a whole bunch of these recordings that were just iconic 80s and 90s jazz records, were a set of 14-inch New Beat hi-hats. And when I had them in my possession, I played them, and I was like, yep, that sounds about right. And I dumbed across these hollow logo Zildjians that to me sound a whole bunch like the ones that he's got.
Nice.
And that's what I landed on. And aside from the fact that I use them for straight ahead jazz, let me tell you, there's a couple things that really resonate with me from the standpoint of why I use them for that. One, they have a tremendous foot sound as far as like just the chick sound when you close the hi-hats like on 2 and 4. Mm-hmm. They really, really speak well. They're never mushy. They're nice and crisp, but they're not chunky.
Yeah, those can be overbearing sometimes.
They're not chunky.
And if you get into like 80s New Beats, you can't play those.
And to me, the litmus test, if you're going to use them for jazz, is how do they blend when you have to play brushes? And they are perfect.
Good.
When you play brushes with them.
Nice.
They have a really, really pleasant stick sound when you have to play them with the stick, either when you're playing your jazz ride pattern over on the hats, or if you're even playing like a straight eighth note type thing over there. They really sound good, and they feel very good, which is going to be one of the points that we make on all of our hi-hats. They feel really good when you have to play them with sticks, whether they're played closed tightly or whether you have to play them like in a half open kind of a type style of playing. Last point, they record really well. Shocking, right?
Yeah, really?
Yeah, shocking. They record really well. So there's my surprise, not so surprise from my first set of hats. Hollow logo, late 70s Zildjian, A Zildjian New Beat hi-hats.
Well, let's do this. I'll go ahead and point mine out for that type and approach in that setting. I have an early 60s set of 15-inch A Zildjians that I've also used in the studio a lot because they kind of just translate well. But they kind of, to me, they're not terribly heavy. They got this great splash sound, which I can usually get a decent chick out of most hi-hats, like tilted or whatever. But the splash thing, man, a lot of hi-hat sets, you can't get a good foot splash sort of thing out there. Not that I do that a lot, but if I do, I don't want it to be distracting. But these hi-hats to me sound kind of like, Blakey had those kind of dark, woofy, and he'd play a lot of heads with them, like, that broken up hi-hat patterns playing, quirky bebop melodies and stuff. They translate really well like that to me. And to me, that was why I lean on those more than anything, is because they work well in that context. And, some brighter hi-hats don't work that well. Some heavier ones don't, because you're doing a lot of shanking. You're pulling a lot of different sounds out of the hi-hat when you're doing that kind of thing. And for me, these really work well in that setting. And then the chick, I'm a little in straight ahead settings. I usually play a little more low volume things when I'm in that kind of thing, like wallpaper like gigs, for lack of better terms. The joke is, you're just in the background. So I don't want a lot of volume on my cymbals. And the chick isn't overbearingly loud. It's felt and heard plenty, but I still I'm not like kind of backing off like, well, it's so loud, comparatively speaking, to the two ride cymbals I use on those gigs are really soft, real low volume. So they blend well in that sense. That's kind of where I'm at with those. So 60s, 15-inch. And I don't think they're really new beats because they're a little closer in weight. Not real close, but closer than the average new beats might be. So there you have it.
Yeah. They were pre-designation new beats.
Correct.
Yeah. John, I'm going to move to my next set of hats, which I think that you will enjoy. It's my... I can use these for almost anything, and they're a relative newcomer to my edition. And they're as close to what I'm going to call magic hi-hats as I'm probably ever going to find. And it is a new set of 15-inch K Zildjian light hi-hats. And I just kind of put in parentheses on my outline, they're the purest hi-hats that I own. They're magic. They're just beautifully balanced in sound. There's not a strident overtone. There's not a clangy sound that comes out of them. They're just perfectly balanced. They're incredibly crisp for larger hats, for 15s, if we want to call them larger, although the kids these days would call them small. Some people use 19-inch hi-hats. But you're
not going to bait me into this. I'm not falling for it.
They just, every aspect of sound that you can draw from a hi-hat, they excel at. They sound great closed. They have a good foot chick sound. They sound great half open, fully open. They just sizzle, man. They just sizzle whenever you play them. And they sound great mic'd. They record great. If you listen to that video that I recorded, that little Drummers Weekly Groovecast like host spotlight, that's those hats on there. 15-inch K-Lite. I've used them on jazz gigs. I've recorded them, and I play them on pop gigs. And, man, they are, I hate to say it, they're infallible.
That's what you hope for, and you found them.
Yeah.
Well, that being said, I loved them so much. I went out and found a pair within 20 grams. Each cymbal's within 20 grams of yours, maybe 15 even.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I'll go ahead and tell everybody what the weights are on mine.
Okay.
The weights on mine, top cymbal is 1027, and these are in grams. 1027, bottom cymbal's 1390 grams.
And mine were 1035 top, 1395 bottom. I mean,
amazing.
Crazy. And when you played mine, you're like, oh my God, they sound almost identical.
Yeah.
You know what I love about these hats, and I did I did a little road work this past week, and 2 or 3 of these songs were like one-handed 16th.
Yeah.
My God, man. I mean, you talk about butter. I mean, they just almost play themselves in that context. And that's another one, kind of like when I'm talking about that whole Blakey broken up thing. Hi-hats, man, when you're playing one-handed 16ths, that can really give you a pretty good idea whether they're going to work with you or not. And these are like, you want to play that groove all night because they're just so right.
And to also kind of embolden your point, these cymbals feel great when you play.
That's everything to me with hi-hats. More so than anything, I think that is the most important thing for me. And I've owned a whole lot of hi-hats, just, between trying different stuff, but then, buying and selling like I do. And I'd say 20% of those feel right to me. Yeah. So, and that's some personal preference too. They might not feel right to you, which is great, but to me, they're not. It's every set of hi-hats is, even sometimes they sound great, but do they feel right? It's so crazy how that feel thing factors in so much.
The one thing I want to mention that you and I have both noticed, and you can call it a drawback if you want to, you and I call it the cost of doing business, is that on both sets of our hats, there seems to be a combination of bottom hi-hat being maybe just a 16th of an inch larger than the top hat, and also maybe the edges of each cymbal being a tad bit sharper than some of the other hats that we own, and they have a tendency to want to chew up sticks a little bit.
Man, I'm going through like the shoulder way more than usual, but I don't care.
That's why I'm going to say that's the cost of doing business with these hats.
Yep.
But if your hats are like that and mine are like that, there's a reason. They found out that there's some magic in the way that taper is and the way that edge is finished, that it needs to be that way.
Yeah.
So
I'll tell you what, though. Interestingly enough, I've owned 2 other pairs of those hi-hats. The first pair was a little darker and more complex in general, like not quite as smooth and versatile, really cool and vibey, but I could only use them in certain settings and really be comfortable with them. I ended up getting rid of those, and I got another pair before you got yours. And they were like same size, the weights, were reasonable, but they were just lifeless, no vibe, like just no inspiration in playing them whatsoever. So then, then again, I mean, that's just like new beats.
Right.
You could play 10 pairs of new beats and you might like 1 pair of them.
That's true.
So be it. And we lucked into these. And I would venture to guess our hi-hats were made within 6 months of each other.
Probably so. And it's worth mentioning again that these are new cymbals. They are new. These are not cymbals from back in the 90s or 2000s. These are made probably within the last year, maybe year to year and a half.
Yep.
So Zildjian's doing something right.
Yeah, they've stepped it up a little bit. They did a lot wrong for a while.
Yeah.
And lately it's been a pleasure to be fond of that company.
Yeah. John, my next set that I want to talk about is a set that's relatively new. I guess I've had them for a few years.
I've never seen these.
I think you have, man. Maybe they just didn't make quite the impression on you that these others. But because here's the thing, I like them a lot, but these are a little bit of a one-trick pony.
Yeah, I get it.
I'm going to explain here in a second. I think it's important for every working drummer to have an entire palette of different sounds that you can draw from. And one of the sounds that I didn't really have was super dark, dry hats. And every now and then I get this wild hair that I want to record something or I want to do something that's going to have a little bit of that super mid-rangey dry sound. And I was surfing around online one day and I just happened to run into this video of Jabbo Starks playing a set of Meinl Bison's dark hats. And man, they had the exact sound that I was hearing in my ear. And it was, to go ahead and add to that, it was a video for mycymbal.com. So it was those hats were for sale. So in other words, it wasn't just any old set of Meinl Bison Stark hats. It was this particular that you could buy. And the thing that I noticed about these, John, is they had a very pronounced woody tip slap, kind of an impact sound on there that was just really pleasing to my ears. Dark, mid-rangey, woody slap that he was getting off those cymbals. And so I thought, just on a flyer, I'm going to go ahead and buy these. So I bought them, got them home. They were exactly what I was looking for. Exactly what I was looking for that sound. They have a real thick, kind of a chunky mid-range sound. And boy, the stick impact sound on those cymbals, it's nothing like that I've got. It's just really, really different. 15-inch Meinl Bison's dark hi-hats.
Awesome. I'll have to play those sometime soon.
They're actually on the set right now in the studio, so you can check them out.
My only other set that I use on any regular basis is a early 2000 set of 14-inch New Beats, and again, it's about a feel. They're not great in low volume, but they feel amazing, and I think they're a little bit darker than the average New Beats, and that's something that kind of caught my ear when I played them. But they are, it's a feel thing, man. They feel under my stick like $1 million. And I haven't been using them as much lately because I'm really loving these 15-inch Ks, but they're not forgotten. You're not forgotten, little New Beats.
Interesting that two of our choices overlapped in models.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
They're two that are pretty difficult to beat by way of the application we use them in regularly.
Yeah. John, I have a quick honorable mention that I'd like to throw out.
Okay.
Now, I'm going to say right up front, I don't own these cymbals anymore. But I want to explain why I'm going to talk about these. And these cymbals also are rarer than hen's teeth, as we like to say down south. So I can give you some examples of where you can hear these hi-hats, but trying to find them, good luck. The cymbals that I'm talking about that are my honorable mention are some early 2000s 15-inch Paiste Dark Energy hi-hats. Now notice I said 15-inch. Because you guys are probably saying, well, they still make those cymbals. Well, yeah, they still make those cymbals, but they don't make the 15-inch Paiste Dark Energy hi-hats. Now, if you want to hear these, probably the best example that you're going to hear recorded online is look at some of the videos that John Robinson has recorded. And a lot of times he's using those 15-inch Paiste Dark Energy hi-hats. They're also on his instructional DVD, Time Machine. I ran across a pair of these hi-hats. And the reason I don't own them is because any longer is not because of the sound, but it's what John and I have been talking about. It's the feel. I could never play those hi-hats and make them feel good under my sticks. Now, sound-wise, it's a different animal. I've had numerous engineers tell me that those were the best sounding hi-hats that they had ever heard. Now,
they just wanted you to buy at lunch.
Well, it's one of those things that you have to weigh on top of, does it feel good, sound good? Can I live with it one way or the other? Mm-hmm. Man, I could just never get them to feel. They felt stiff under my sticks.
I don't care how good they sound. And
part of it has to do also with the weights, which we've talked about some weights of some cymbals. Here are the weights on these Paiste Dark Energies. That top cymbal was 1085, completely fine, right, John? You're like, 1085, that's for a 15-inch.
Pretty nice.
That's good stuff, right? Bum, bum, bum. The bottom cymbal, 1665.
Oh, that'd cut your toe off if you dropped
It's like an anvil.
Lord have mercy.
So
I just think it made me tired playing them.
Made you tired hearing 1665.
Carrying them.
That's heavy for any hi-hat.
That's a lot. That's a lot of weight.
Yeah. So,
God, the open sound had to be annoying.
Well, I'll tell you, man, there was never any problem with volume.
No kidding.
But, again, the reason they're honorable mention is because of the sound, man. There were times, and I will back up what that engineer said. There were times coming back through my ears or on recordings that I would hear on a playback. They sounded as good as any set of hi-hats that I have ever heard. I mean, they sounded tremendous. In particular, I was telling John just before the show started, there was this one TV show that I was doing that a guy that was putting it out on TV, he came back through my ears and he said, man, those are the best sounding hi-hats I've ever heard. And again, coming through my ears, they sounded great too. But again, another thing, they were using like a Neumann KM 184. So, I mean, that's about a $2,000 microphone.
That makes Sabian B8 sound good.
Yeah. But anyway, I wanted to throw that out there that if anybody had a line on any of those, because they're just so rare, finding a set of those, it might be worth your time, giving them a listen. And especially play on them first to see if they bother you from just a heaviness and from a stiffness standpoint. Because that's the only reason I got rid of them. I could just never make them feel right. And I had them, man, I had those cymbals for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
And played
them a good college try.
Yeah, played them on a ton of gigs, a bunch of sessions. They always recorded well, or pretty much always recorded well. But, man, there were just times they didn't sound right coming through my ears, and then sometimes, man, most of the time, they just didn't feel right when I played them. So there we go.
That.
So, John, let's talk about a few hi-hat stands now, because you got to have the complementary stands to make your cymbals feel good.
Yeah, that really is important. I mean, it goes along the lines of the pedal, bass drum pedal, just and the throne. This is your core here. So not only should you not skimp from the usability aspect and the functional aspect, but don't do yourself the disservice of having amazing sounding hi-hats and a crappy stand, because it's going to affect them.
Yeah.
Well, some people might be like, no, it does.
John, one of our first picks is another one of these mutual love things.
Yeah, hard to go wrong with.
Let's really quickly throw out what we'll call it our lighter duty hi-hat stand, the Yamaha 700 series.
Mm-hmm.
That's a hi-hat stand that I've had for a long time, man. I think I've probably had one of those for the better part of 25 years.
I'd say I've owned one for at any given time. It might be different, but that model, it's a 740A, I think it is.
Yeah,
they're just simplicity at its finest, with a nod to quality, as Yamaha always has with hi-hats. Simple, well thought out design, and they just feel good and they hold up. And
Yeah.
that's a tough one to go wrong with. You know, I'm kind of I'm not a big double braced hi-hat stand fan. I think it's overkill. So all of my hi-hat stands are single braced. And there's plenty. The nice thing about this Yamaha one is the footprint's pretty good. It's pretty significant. You got plenty of balance on that. So don't shy away from, when we say light duty, they'll hold up under any circumstances. Just about.
Yeah, I've used it on plenty of rock gig, but I think it's primarily that one cymbal stand that I have now is in my hardware bag for my trio and quartet kind of stuff, which I will be employing tonight. Looking forward to using it.
We did talk about earlier, Yamaha has a 600 series stand. It's a smaller footprint and smaller tubes. That's really nice. It's the same stand, just smaller tube diameters. That's really a great hi-hat stand too. If you want to continue to go super light, there's a great option for you.
John, I have another, I'll call it a medium duty stand that I use that occasionally will find its way even into the lighter hardware bag. Now, it's a double braced stand. Yeah. But let me tell you.
You macho animal, you.
Wait till you get to my heavy duty one. But it's a stand that I acquired several years ago. I think I have two of these that I keep. And it's a double brace stand by Pearl, and it's a Pearl 800 series. And I believe actually I can actually qualify it even a little closer. I think it's an 820 is what I'm using. And
really common. They came with like all those export kits and all that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. A real simple, straightforward design. Well thought out, well made.
Well thought out, very well made, quiet, and man, just from if you want to get to a little lovely point of minutia, it's got a really cool hi-hat clutch on it that comes with those stinking rubber washers that I like.
Oh, yeah. Like
I like those,
That's
man.
Funny. I like that rubber cup washer that goes under.
Well, now, listen,
cool.
Check it out, man. Here's the thing. That's going to be on my next stand. Hint, hint. You know where this is going.
Yep.
But it's not on that 800 stand.
Yeah. No, they didn't have those.
They didn't have it at that time.
That was before that came out.
Yeah. It's just a felt. It's a regular plastic hi-hat seat with a felt washer on top. Is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I really like that one.
So my medium weight one that I've had forever. It's a 90s era Pearl, that Black Label era. Mm-hmm. It's the HH885.
Okay.
And the difference is it's single braced. It also has the adjustable feet where you can have a spike or the rubber. You loosen and turn and flip over. But the difference is it's got that offset pulley system, and I absolutely love that offset. I don't like any resistance in my hi-hat that I can get. And the first one I ever had was a Tama Lever Glide.
Yes.
That had that offset, and it was magic, and it got stolen. It was taken from me, but as a matter of fact, lightweight. I've had a number of these. They have a single braced lever glide from the 90s that's really incredible, and it's that again the offset pulley system. And I can't say enough about those stands. But Pearl has one. I buy them if I see them, just because I love them so much. At one time I had 4 of them, I think, and I have 2 now. But you know, like someone's like, "Oh, I gotta have this stand. I don't have it." I'm like, "Oh, I got one here."
Yeah.
But HH885, that Black Label era stand, is a magic. Great. I use that on my regular gigging hardware. I use the most as that stand. Killer stuff.
I want to check that one out.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, if I can find this second one, I'll let you borrow it and play it for a while.
My heavy duty one is going to make you cringe for numerous reasons, John. One is the reason why I even bought it. About a year or so ago, I started sticking my toe back into the waters of double bass. Oh boy, this is one of those times that we need a video podcast so you can see John. He's done everything but stick the needle in his arm. So I needed a hi-hat stand, John, that had 2 legs, not 3, right? So I had a buddy that was working at a store that gave me a monster deal on a Pearl 2000 stand. And I think, don't they have snooty names for those now, like eliminators and stuff like that?
That's correct.
And man, he gave me a monster deal on this thing. I can't even remember what, but it was really low. I think this hi-hat stand that I'm talking about now cost over $300, and this one wasn't not even in the same hemisphere.
Nice.
As that. He gave me a deal on it, but I'm pretty sure it's got the offset cam thing you're talking about.
Okay.
On the bottom.
I'm not familiar enough with the stand.
Pretty sure it does. It's got that wonderful rubber hi-hat seat that you're talking about, that cup that's underneath it. It's got it's got the best hi-hat clutch that I've ever used on there. Nice. It's got just a really nice smooth hi-hat clutch for tightening, of course. It's got a locking nut underneath, which some people might say it's a little bit of overkill, but say what you will about it.
I like locking nuts.
Yeah. And then I've got the little Pearl rubber hi-hat washers on there.
There you go.
It is completely and totally silent, effortless to move as far as like as far as your foot action on it. It doesn't feel heavy, in other words, is what I'm saying when you're playing. You know how there's some pedals, whether it be hi-hat or bass drum pedals, they feel heavy because they are heavy.
Like DW 9000 hi-hat stands or 5000 hi-hat stands.
They feel heavy.
Laborious to play for me.
This hi-hat stand does not feel heavy. Whenever
when I think about that Pearl stand you're talking about, the one thing I noticed when it first came out that kind of freaked me out was like you had to have a half an acre just to set it up. Like, it seems like the footprint is gigantic.
Well, I don't necessarily feel it's that bad simply from the standpoint of I've got it set up downstairs right now with that double bass drum pedal that I'm using.
There,
and it certainly works, you know? Yeah.
I don't, so that's why it seems like there's a lot of real estate there.
Yeah. So that's my pick for my heavy duty stand.
Nice.
Because it certainly does feel good, and to me it does not feel heavy. And I'm really sensitive to heavy feeling hardware. Yeah. It just doesn't feel that way whenever I play it. Yeah.
I don't use any heavy. I just don't. I think when I did a lot of rentals, I had a 5000. It was a 2-leg double brace, monster DW one, but I don't have any use for heavy stands anymore. So I think that choice is fantastic if you're wanting to have some, a really solid heavy hi-hat stand. That's a good one. There is one that I own just in passing, like in my buying and selling mode. It was the Tama, the newer what's that?
Iron Cobra.
That's a nice stand. And it's a double brace 2-legged, but that's a good feeling hi-hat stand that's really heavy if you're wanting to go that route. One to check out.
Yeah. John, this whole show has pretty much been a gear recommendation show.
Yeah.
And we've literally thrown out thousands of dollars worth of recommendations. So, it's kind of apropos that we'll end our show with our segment on another gear recommendation, and both of our recommendations together cost under $40. So that'll be kind of nice for everybody.
Yeah, everybody's like in a fetal position at the cost of all these things now. We're gonna throw you a bone.
Oh, we're gonna throw you just. And both of them are simplicity at its finest, too.
Yeah, no doubt.
The one I want to bring up first, my gear recommendation for the show, for the week, costs a grand total of about $10 street price. Maybe even less than that. And it's something that I carry with me on every gig. And it's just a brilliant invention that luckily I have not had to use, but I've had to scramble in the past for a different solution. Well, now my solution is carried with me on every gig. And what it is the Aquarian kick patch. And you're probably going, well, you idiot, everybody has one of those. No, it's not the little bass drum beater patch that's about, 3 inches in diameter. It's not that. This thing is the Aquarian kick patch, and it is one of those break glass in case of emergency sort of things. It's a 12-inch in diameter. So think about this just for a second. It's 12 inches in diameter, like a tom-tom. Think in terms of that. It's a 12-inch piece of plastic that is self-adhesive, that what you do is you peel the back off and stick it on your drum head if you have a bass drum head, if you have a rip in it. Like, for example, it's happened to me two times in 30 years of gigging, over thousands of gigs. But when it happens, it is horror show. And I've had it happen 2 separate ways. And if this invention had been around during these days, it would have fixed both of them. The 2 ways that it's happened to me. One, there was a time when I was in the middle of a set, and somehow the bass drum pedal was not attached quite as firmly to the bass drum hoop as it should have been. The bass drum pedal crept forward a little bit, and the cam of the bass drum pedal ripped the bass drum head by rubbing against it. Okay? The second time that it happened was on a gig. I was in the middle of a gig, and just the impact of the bass drum beater had just gone through the bass drum head, and it caused about a 4 or 5 inch vertical tear right where the bass drum beater made impact. Well, in both of those situations, you just have to stop the gig for a few minutes. I had to grab gaff tape, and I had to put strips of gaff tape on the batter side of the head and then go through the front side of the head up against the back side of the batter head and put reinforcement tape on it. Well, no more do you have to do that with the Aquarian kick patch. You pull that thing out of your trap case, out of your cymbal bag, whatever case you've got it in. You just pull the adhesive off the back, stick it right over where the rip is, and you will get through the rest of that gig. That is the best $10 piece of insurance that you will buy. And another thing, you can actually, if you wanted to, use it just as a large kick drum patch, like, for example, or a kick drum beater impact pad. What it will essentially do is also cover up enough real estate on that drum head that if you want to lower the pitch of your bass drum, you can do that as well. So you can use it a couple of different ways. But for the ballpark of $10, you will not find a better insurance policy to carry with you. I am done.
That's fantastic, man. The simplest idea, the hit yourself on the forehead. Why didn't I think of that kind of thing?
Exactly.
It's just that kind of simple. My thing today that I wanted to recommend was, it was born out of the challenge of doing certain gigs where you're just throwing your stuff up there and going, like multi-band gig at an original music venue. There's 3 bands, and you don't really get a sound check. You don't have the comfort of an ear mix. You don't have the comfort of, some kind of reference to anything other than a loud monitor and your somewhat stressed out take on a tempo. So I was thinking, what could I do? I'm so used to playing gigs where I have an in-ear mix and I have everything I want at my disposal, and an app or a mixer to get everything, and a click to reference and all that. And I'm like, in these settings, I don't have that. And so I came up with the idea of, my wife got this really simple little tiny Bluetooth earpiece, and it's really like maybe 3/4 inches long max. And it just sits in your ear, and it's got the sort of the same earbuds as like the universal in-ears have. It just sits in your ear and stays there. There's no wire or anything clearly. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, I could use that along with my phone and my tempo, my metronome app, and have a reference to a click or a count off for, 40-minute set you're going to do. And you're just like, a lot of times when I do that, I'm playing music I'm not, terribly familiar with. I don't want to guess on tempos and all that. And so there it is. It acts as, not only do I have a tempo reference, a click, if you will, if I want it, I can turn it on or off right there on my phone. It's not this, I'm not taking 5 to 10 minutes to set up this whole thing and hope the mix is right and all that. I'm getting whatever mix I get, but I still have, something that's probably 25 to 30 dB cut. So I'm getting it. I can hear it. It acts as an earplug as well, which we all would use in that setting. But there it is. I have a tempo click reference. Literally, my phone, like I can have it sitting right there on anything, and there, dial it up, go, next one. I have a set list. I can program a set list of tempos if I need to. And there it is, man. It's like, it cost me, I think it cost $22 for the one I have. There's a number of them out there. Find one you like how it looks. I don't think about sound quality as much as just can I hear it?
Yeah.
But man, it has been, there've been a couple gigs I've done where I'm like, I'm doing 8 or 9, 10 tunes on the fly. I'm not guessing. There's one less thing I'm stressed out about. I can't pull up my iPad for charts. I can't pull up my, whatever I'm using for a metronome in my in-ear thing. Here it is. Here's the solution. It's one less thing I'm tripping on. I know it's right. I'm counting it, and we go. You can turn it off. You can leave it on. Whatever you want to do. $22 for that peace of mind, brother.
Man, I love it. I think it's brilliant, and I never would have thought about that.
Just stumbled onto it by accident. My dear wife bought one and was using it for podcasts or something. And I'm like, man, that's perfect. And she ordered me another one without me asking. And sure enough, the solution was born.
Man, don't you love it when we can give our poor, broke brethren hot tips for $22 and $10 respectively?
We need more of those, man. The way things are going.
My pick of the week for hauling your drums is the Porsche Cayenne. You don't have to say that,
The only way you will be respected on a bebop gig is to have that 1950s round badge Cadillac green Village Vanguard set. No. Sorry, we won't throw that crap at you. $22 and $8 respectively.
Yeah.
Who loves you, baby?
I'm telling you. That don't you love? We can file this segment under one of those things that you see on like YouTube where it calls the most satisfying video ever. This is our most satisfying segment. All right, John, you got anything else you want to impart upon these listeners this week?
Not really. Just someone buy this Radio King from me.
well said. You can go to John. You can go to our Facebook page and find it out. Oh well. Anyway, while you're there, make sure you drop us a line, folks. We love to hear from you. You can always email us. We're at drummersweeklygroovecast@gmail.com. You can interact with us and buy John's Slingerland Radio King at our Facebook page. We're at facebook.com/drummersweeklygroovecast. And you can tweet us as well. We're at twitter.com/DWGroovecast, or as you hep cats would have to do, at DWGroovecast. And we don't like to beg, but we'll ask you, when you're in iTunes, because you're going to subscribe to us anyway, you can subscribe to us at iTunes, leave us a short written review. We would greatly, greatly appreciate it. Essentially what that does is that allows other listeners who may not be aware of our show to kind of cross-reference us with other shows of our ilk. And then that way they can be hep cats like you guys as well. Then the last thing, while you're in iTunes, hit that subscribe button. New shows come out every week. If you're not an Apple guy, you can also find us on Google Play Podcasts or Stitcher or Podbean or basically any place that you access podcasts. We'll see you next Monday with a brand new show. Until then, bye-bye.
Appreciate you. Bye.